Hello everybody. So this is the final video for my McDowell's Employee costume tutorial. I just want to have a few, just like a little talk with you before I begin the actual tutorial. For my costume, I already had this pattern. It's like a vintage pattern. It's Simplicity 8868. Whoa, 8868. That's what I'm going to be using. But of course, whatever you can find that is, you know, just like a general vest, if you already have that in your pattern arsenal, go ahead and use it. Or if you want to buy this one, you'll probably have to order it online. I mean, it's a vintage pattern. You'll have to. So just some notations here. With this pattern in particular, I was reading over it right now. In some differences I noticed with like the vintage patterns versus the newer ones, like with the classes I teach at Joann's, normally it'll have like, you know, the jacket is view A, the vest is view B, the dress is C. So it tells you, so when you go to the back, you know, you can find it. But in this case, it doesn't state that on the back of the packet. The pattern pieces aren't numbered, they're like lettered. It's all like not alphanumeric, it's just like alphabetical letters. So for the vest, in this case, I'm only gonna cut out 3 pieces, which is M as in Mary, P as in Paul, and N as in Nancy. Now I did read further in the instructions, and this is up to you. Now I need to make this right away. You know, it doesn't have to be super fancy. This calls for the vest to be lined. For the most part, I'm going to skip it. The most I'll probably do is create a facing, which if you want to kind of do it in a quick way, like I'm doing it, then I'll show you how to also do the facing. What else? So I will go over the monogramming of the M, because you will need the M for the McDowells. If you don't have an embroidery machine, don't worry. I'll show you how to do it with just a regular sewing machine and your zigzag stitch with a very small stitch length and width. And I'll get that out of the way. What else? I think that's about it. I just wanted to go over that really quick in terms of the pattern. If you don't have this, lots of different brands make their own style of vest patterns. You could probably also get like a PDF printout on Pinterest. So just a couple things to keep in mind if you're freaking out that you don't have the one that I'm doing. So anyway, with that said, let's get started. So some things I want to add here before you start cutting your fabric. Go ahead and just check the measurements. Some of the vintage ones, it's just like one size. So like this is not multiple size. Wait. It's not multiple size. So this is a size 14 only. So you go to the back and look at what is a 14. Well, here it is. Okay, it's right there. So these are the measurements that correspond to this. Obviously I am like way over here. So that's an extra 4 inches I need to add evenly around, like 2 on each side of the pattern. So do check that. Don't just start cutting and say, oh, well, I'm a size 12, because a size 12 in this is like this measurement. So like it's all weird, especially the vintage ones. The sizing is so much smaller.
A for apple.
And even the more modern ones, they're a little off too in terms of what you may be used to as far as sizing. Something else also, you want to check your length of how it is, because like I put this like over myself and it was just way too short. Like the end here came up like right underneath my rib cage pretty much. So that was like way too short. So I just want to make a note here. So naturally, if something is too short, you might want to just add all the extra inches from here. But you will, if you have this shape like this, in any case, you're going to distort the way the end looks. So on all patterns, there's always a line that says lengthen here, shorten here. So in this case, I cut across the line, and I needed to add 4 more inches to make it my custom length. So I cut that, and now I will increase this by 4 inches. Let's say, so this is, let me put the line here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is how I had it on my fabric. Let me scoot this over. And then I cut it as if I had an extra extension. And then when I put it away, I'll just tape this back and leave it be. So yeah, I just do want to make you aware of that as well. Because again, if you try and add all the extra inches down here, all this is going to get distorted and it's not going to look right. So you do need to cut and lengthen or fold upwards from that line if you need to shorten it. So I just want to make that clear really quick. So I'm going to start cutting, sewing, putting things together. I'm going to cut. I already cut the fabric, sew it together to make the basic shell of it, and then I'll continue with the rest of the tips as I go. Here is some extra notation about Simplicity 8868 that I'm using to make this vest, which it didn't come with the piece to cut out. I guess this is just the differences with vintage patterns or more advanced patterns. I'm not really sure because I usually just make mine nowadays, but so it cut out three parts. There was an underarm part, there's the side front, which is like this, and then the back. But I didn't notice or realize, I didn't understand. I thought this was like a facing. There's a part that says underarm section, which I thought was like a facing for the underarm, but no, it's actually like, I guess like an extension. If you'll see here, you see this little middle piece, like normally, you would combine the front to the back, and which is what I normally do, and I didn't really give this section much thought, but that's what it is. So before you connect the front to the back, you have to connect the front to your side, what is it called? Underarm section. And then once you have that as one whole piece, then you connect that to the back. Also pay attention, again, if you're not using 8868 and you're using some other pattern that you bought, please pay attention to the markings on the pattern about any kind of darts or stay stitching. And stay stitching is just like a wide stitch that you just follow across close to the edge, not too close, maybe about 1/4 centimeter away. And that just prevents the like neck hole or areas that have like a bias in it where it might get some stretch, to keep it from stretching out of place. And also another weird thing here that they didn't include on the pattern pieces, because they only gave me 3 pattern pieces, it tells you have to add interfacing, but it never gives you like an interfacing pattern to cut the interfacing out of. It just tells you cut 2 straight strips of interfacing, 2 inches wide each and 13.5 inches long, which is 5 centimeters wide and 34.5 centimeters long. So now they're kind of asking you to make your own pattern, which I found was interesting. And another little tip about that, not all interfacing is fusible, which has like that iron-on backing glue to it. Sometimes like I'll do this too, I'll buy interfacing and I didn't even realize I got the non-fusible kind. So if you get the non-fusible kind, you will have to like base stitch it to your garment before you can continue, or else it's just gonna like slip and slide and fall off if you don't do that. So that's all I wanted to make clear about that. I already cut out, so I have my one side joined at the shoulders. And then again, since I'm skipping the whole lining section, I just serged it because it's just a costume. It's not really, but I do have the side arm open. So before I did this, I did join it, and then when I was reading over the instructions, then I realized, oh, the underarm goes in between this. So as you can see here, I took it apart with my seam ripper to correct myself. I do have to cut, I made a pattern for my underarm section just out of like another piece of fabric, and I did add the extension as I explained to you a moment ago. Again, I just cut where it says lengthen here. I added my 4 inches or however many inches that you need to add, and then I made my own piece, and then I'll cut this out of the plaid fabric right now. So in preparation for the logo, this is what I'm doing to try and get the right shape and size. So I came to Google, and I typed in McDowell's Golden Arcs logo. I like this one. So I saved it, and then I went to print on my Mac here. It'll pretty much be the same for all computers, so don't freak out too much. So I went here and I chose 3x5. As you can see, it makes it massive, but then I came and I changed the scale to 40%. So when I printed that, I got this size, which I do like a lot. When you do that 40% by 3x5, you end up with 1.5. Let me see, by 1.5, yeah. I end up with 1.5 by 1.5. So this is 1.5, and this side is 1.5. So with this, now we can go on and we can use this as a logo for what we're doing. So go ahead and do that. Next, what we're going to use is now this will be optional. You can either have an embroidery hoop to help you with the monogramming, or I do this a lot without the embroidery hoop, but I do want to make this just as neat as possible because I believe, you know, it's the logo that makes the vest. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So, but definitely get this printed out, and then I'll show you what we do with the paper next. Another few things I want to say. Let's start prepping the hoop for this. So what you see here is I have muslin. That's just what I had, but ideally what I would suggest is that you just get a fabric underneath that has absolutely zero stretch to it, and that's to keep this, because this has some slight stretch to it, and again, we don't want to do things that will stretch it out of place or else it'll look like you have like lumps or little tumors or something when you wear the vest later. So we want to avoid that. So I'm going to put that under here. And then the other thing I was telling you about that we need in order to do this embroidery with your machine is this. They sell it also by the yard. I just decided I needed some, so I just bought this package. It was like $3.99. It's called Stitch and Stare Stabilizer. So this pretty much just feels like regular paper, maybe like a softer, more clothy feeling, like compared to cardstock. So there is like a cloth texture to it, but it tears like paper. So that's what you need. So I'm going to prep this. So with the hoops, you take them apart. You put one on top, one on the bottom. So I'm going to put my McDowell's emblem right about here. So here's my armpit, which this would be like where the bust line is. So I'm going to do it just kind of slightly above. So I'm going to aim it for this area right here. So when you do it, get your target of where you're going to do this right in the middle. So this is where I am right now. I'm right in the middle. So I'm going to have it like right below this one blue line right here. So in fact, let me move it a little bit more because you want to have room so that way your machine can get in there. Kind of open this up. In fact, you know what? Let me flip this because I want the sunken side to be what I'm looking at. So I'm going to flip this around. Okay. There we go. That I like. So once you do that, then you're going to find the screw and you're going to just tighten it. You're going to tighten it, okay? Then get your stitch and tear, and you're going to cut out a piece, you know, just to cover the whole back. And this is not going to be permanent. Again, it's just there to stabilize. And I'll cut this like a big square with my paper scissors. And then let me take it to the machine. So this is what I'm doing. And just, by the way too, the printout that we made, see I have the stitch and tear on the back. This, I just temporarily taped it because we're going to use that as like the stencil to go over it. Okay. Now, you know what? I need to change my foot because I cannot use a walking foot for this. So we can't use a walking foot. We're gonna have to switch it to the applique foot, or some machines has this as like the buttonhole foot. But on mine, it's clear and it has like an orange little grid on it to help you kind of like guide you and make sure you're on target because you can see through the foot. What I'm doing here, we're gonna do some test runs here. So what I do is I will turn my, my stitch length real fine. And I can't tell you what it is for every machine because every machine is different, but you're gonna want your stitch width very, very fine, very, very close together. And you're going to want to switch your foot to the zigzag, and then I'm going to have my zigzag right there. Okay. Now, before I even attempt to mess with this, I'm going to just do some test runs so I can make sure. And here I'm just using regular paper, which you can use, but of course it's always best to use the right thing, which is why I bought the stabilizer. So I'm just going to do some practice runs to make sure that the stitching is how I like it before I go on my actual and while you're doing that, just make sure that it's actually moving, because sometimes it'll get stuck in one place and it'll just make this like massive mound, like a knot, and that's not good either. So yeah, we don't want that. It's a little far apart still for my liking, so I'm gonna put this all the way fine. And let me do one more practice run. And see, with the stabilizer, it'll be like this in the back, and you tear it off, okay? So that's how you use a stabilizer or paper. Sometimes, depending on the fabric, if it's being very fussy, I'll even do like 2 layers of paper towels on the back. Like I mean, you really could use anything, just as long as it's helping you with the process. Let me see that stitching. Much better. So I like this stitching. It's a lot cleaner and closer together. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what I'm gonna do. So that's set. Now, further notation, and you can do what I'm gonna do, or you can completely disregard it. You can keep it on the same stitch width. I'm gonna do the stitching I just did for like right here in the middle. And then when I get to the wider parts, I'm going to increase my stitch width so it becomes wider and it can actually fill this in and mimic the thickness of the M. And then it will, you know, it's a detail thing, like just like, you know, what I want to do. Okay. So I've encountered a problem I didn't even think about because I haven't done this a long time with the embroidery hoop. So I'm going to take off my foot because the hoop is so tall, there's no clearance for it. Let me raise my needle. Hold on. There we go. So I had to do that. So let me put my foot back on. So let's get started. I'm going to start, and again, like I said, with my foot, it's clear, so I can see where I'm starting at. I'm gonna look over it and just make sure that my needle is going to puncture where it should. Okay, and I'm gonna start. And it is giving me some kind of resistance, so I am giving it very, very slight pressure forward. Okay, now check it out. Right here, I'm already getting to where it starts wide. I'm going to increase my stitch width from 3 to about 4.5. So here, I'm getting to that more turn. I'm going to slightly turn it. Try and fill in my M. I'm turning, I'm turning, I'm turning. I'm going to completely turn. You know what? And I'm going to go backwards a little bit, just reposition. I'm going to increase my width all the way to 5. I think I was like at 4 3/4, but I'm going to increase it to 5. I'm turning. I'm getting back down to the middle. I'm gonna put it back down to 3 on the stitch width. And again, it's if you wanna do a practice run with a few printouts of your own, I'm comfortable doing it this way because I've obviously done it many times. And I'm just gonna, yeah, and for some reason it's giving me like issues. It wants to push it forward when I'm trying to push it forward, like against me. So right here, I'm going to stop because I'm in the middle of the M. There's nowhere else for me to go. So I'm going to lift. I'm going to cut. I'm going to pull this one long. I'm going to make sure from underneath, I pull that. Can you see? Can you see how I'm doing that? And then later, and then right now when I come back, I can just kind of fill the missing pieces in more. So here I go, starting at the thick part of the M. I'm going to go back and increase it to 5, reposition. Okay, here I go. I'm going to decrease it back down to 3. Because I'm getting at that point where I'm coming to the narrowing of the M. Yeah, it's definitely giving me some slack, and I'm sure it's because of the stabilizer too. But I'm gonna finish my M. There we go. Here's where I'm at. So as you can see, you can totally do monogramming without having an actual computerized, expensive machine. Now I do see, you know, some bald spots there. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna guesstimate that's about a 4 width on the parts that I need to just do some filling in, just like you're filling in with crayons. Just like you're filling in with crayons. Let me scoot this one. Yeah, so I'm giving it slight pressure this way just because I can feel my machine wanting to pull it this way when the dog teeth take everything that way. Or the dog feeders, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go across. I'm watching it. I never take my eyes off of it. Because you got to pay attention to where your thread's going. I'm going to fill in one more time on this side, maximum width. Let me start from about right here. And then I think I will be done and pretty satisfied with what I was able to do here. Awesome! I love it. I gotta cut it. So now what we're gonna do, remove the foot so that way we can take out the the hoop. There we go. Watch out with your needle. If you want to take out your needle too, you're more than welcome to. Okay. Where's the camera? Can you see my M? Yay! So here we are, complete. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I'm just gonna take off the paper, rip it off completely. Look at that. And at this time too, if you want to do some additional cleaning up, which I am seeing now that I took off the paper, you know, be a little perfectionist. I want to get this as nice looking as possible because again, it's that M logo. The M really, you know, seals the deal. Except what I'm going to do now is instead of doing a zigzag stitch, I'm going to just outline it with a straight stitch. You know, same concept, but I'm going to just outline it with a straight stitch. Make sure your paper is smooth and flat underneath. Okay. So I'm going to switch on my machine, get everything back to center, straight stitch, do this. I'll have it, still want to have small stitching. I'll even experiment with large stitches right now, but I'm going to stay with the small stitching. So I'm at a 15, which is starting to get pretty small on my machine. Let me start on this side of the M. Okay, so I'm just gonna hand crank it so I can see if the needle goes exactly on the edge of my M, okay, which it is. You cannot rush this part, folks. And then if you could see, like I was saying on my foot, there's an orange line here, and this helps indicate where I'm at, where the needle's actually going to end up. So it helps guide me. With about less than 10% done, I'll go ahead and call it on this video. I'm assuming that you do have some basic knowledge of sewing, so I'll just kind of do the rundown here. I did 4 buttonholes with my buttonhole machine attachment. If you have a buttonhole machine attachment, please read your manual on how to go ahead and do that. The only thing left that I need to do is I didn't even realize I didn't have matching buttons. I have a bunch of black buttons, but they are not the same one. So I have to go to the store and buy some now. So I'm a little irritated at that. And then I just have to hem the bottom, but that's it. Like I said, I wasn't going to do the lining because I'm just keeping this like a super simple, basic costume piece. What else? I do have a serger, so I did Look at these little stray threads. I did serge the edges, and then I made my own bias tape, or you can go buy your own. And I did the armholes and the neck hole. So I ended up doing a lot of fitting on it. It's not exactly like fitted for like a feminine figure, but it was quite boxy before. So I did go through quite a bit of tailoring before I was able to put on my bias tape, just because it was just way too boxy. Yeah, the only thing else I need to do is buy a white button-down collared shirt and some blue pants and a mop, and then I'll be rocking. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.